I forgot to clock in. Can I clock in right now?
Who is this?
Kayla.
Kayla, yeah, go ahead.
Alrighty.
So, hi, everyone. Yeah, I got you on here, Kayla. Okay. Hi, everyone. A little bit, tiny bit, maybe. Yes, no, maybe so, probably not. Probably have to go through it another time just to really get the gist of it. But so what I'm gonna do today is go over. So we've been over, yesterday we went over the increased layers and a couple different ways to do that. And then we went over the solid form and a couple of different ways to do that. So today I wanna go over like uniformly layered and hopefully get into graduation. Uniformly layered is pretty popular. It's a little bit harder to do just because of the fact that we have to travel around the head and stay at 90 degrees as we're traveling around that head. So that's where it gets a little bit difficult. One of the things when we're teaching it here and working with the students that I always hear is, I've lost my guide. I can't find my guide. I don't know how much to cut. So you do have to go back to where you were at before to pick your guide back up. So if you ever get lost, just go back to where you know you were right, and then you can go from there. So what I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna pull up some pictures on how you can identify what type of layers someone might be asking for. So let me get this up real quick here. Maybe. Why did that happen? Layered. Okay, so the thing with this particular cut is that all lengths are the same. So on the top of my head, if I had 3 inches worth of length of hair, say on the top area up here, I better have the same amount on the bottom down here. And that's one of the things that makes this one a little bit more identifiable, let's say. So if I'm over here looking at, let me get where I can write on this. Okay. If I'm over here looking at this cut right here, this portion may be uniform, but the rest of it may not, because over here on the sides, this doesn't look like it's as long as the top up here, and this definitely doesn't look like it's the same length as the top. Not saying that it's not, it just doesn't look like it. Okay, when I'm looking at these two right here, these could possibly be the same length, because here's my length here and here's my length there. Could be about the same. Same thing up here with the top. Here's my length there, and when I come back here, I have this length. So those possibly could be the same length. This one's a possibility to be the same length. This one. But if we remember when we're listening to how to identify a uniformly layered sculpture, we're gonna find out that it is rounded in shape, or it could be, oh, this won't move. It could be sort of a gumdrop-ish type look, just depending on the length of the hair. Not to say that you can't do this in a longer hairstyle, because it will work with longer hair, but the whole thing is it has to be 90 degrees held all the way around. This one right here is a possibility. Let's see. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I kind of blew that one. Let me go back to this. So when we're down in this area here, this is a possibility of being 90 degrees and a little bit of a longer length. If we're looking at some of these mannequins, this mannequin head right here more than likely is a 90-degree haircut, but notice it still has that kind of a roundish look to it. If we want to refine our search, it says, let's see what this does, to 90 degrees. I just want to see what this is going to give me right here. Okay, it's kind of bringing it all up to the 90 degrees. As we're looking at this, a lot of them do kind of look like they are the same. This is the girl from the Pivot Point book right here. Oh, hello. You've seen her picture before. Sometimes they refer to this as a 90-degree layer cut, a 90-degree angle cut, a basic 90-degree haircut, short layers. But the thing is that the layers are all the same all the way around the whole head. So how do you know if the layers are the same? Like someone comes in and, you know, we find this happening. Someone comes in to get a haircut and they haven't had a haircut in, like 6 months. And they say, oh yeah, just follow the haircut that I had before. I want it cut the same way. You're like, okay, how long has it been since you've had a haircut? And they say, oh, about 6 to 8 months. Okay, by that time, it would be really hard to find something to follow. So there's a few things that you can do when you go to comb the hair to find out if you have a uniform layer or if you have an increased layer. So remember, an increased layer, everything's kind of brought up, right? The length increases. You go from like oh, that hurt my finger. You go from like a increased layer at 180 degrees or conversion to 90. So if this lovely lady came in and I didn't know what kind of haircut she had. She just came in and says, yeah, you know, I want my hair cut. I want some layers. What I would have to do is find out what type of layer she had. I never really check in the front right here. I always go right about mid-ear when I go to do this, just because you could have went through and did some extra texturizing in the front to give it some face framing or something like that, so we don't really know. If I comb this hair out, let's say I'm gonna go at 90 degrees. See how this length kind of gets shorter to longer? That's telling me that that's an increased layer. If this was a uniformly layered and I'm combing this out at 90 degrees, this should all be the same length. I should not have the whole increase from the shorter piece here to the longer piece down here. This should all be the same. So that's one way to tell what type of haircut that the person has when you're trying to figure out between your shorter layers to your longer layers. So we know from yesterday that up here on the top, come on, work, stay where I put you. Up here on the top, that this is our shortest layer. So now it doesn't want to, this thing does not want to stay today. Okay, so we know that this is the shortest layer, which approximately from the apex, which is the top of the head, right? This is where my comb is gonna balance out on the top of the head. So I know from this portion right here, how long is this? This is about maybe 8 inches long. When I come down here to this hair on the bottom and I pull this out, this is probably like 10 inches long. So what I want to do is make sure that this all ends up being the same length, and that's going to be our uniformly layered. So in order to do that, it's a lot easier by sectioning this hair into 4 sections. So I'm going to go ahead and actually I think I'm going to spray this down first. Now, if this client came in and had hair like this, I would go back to the shampoo bowl. I would probably get it wet at the shampoo bowl. A lot of times clients will say that they don't want their hair shampooed. Sometimes I think it's because they think they have to pay extra for it because they're like, oh yeah, I shampooed my hair today. But for me, if the client does not want their hair shampooed, I would just tell them, you know what, it's going to make it a lot easier if we go to the back and, you know, go to the shampoo bowl afterwards because they thought that they were going to have to pay more. So make sure that you do what's going to give you the best results. And in this case, I would go back to the shampoo bowl. All right, so there's one section. Same basic forward, right? Forehead to nape, ear to ear. Gonna section this up. Oops, that wasn't behind the ear in a very good spot. That was about right. Make sure I'm staying in the same area. I use a different stand today, so I'm gonna be tripping all over the other one. So now I want to make my guide, right? We always have to have a design line. So head position in this is upright, section is in 4. My parting patterns are going to be vertical. My finger and toe position are going to be parallel. My elevation is going to be 90 degrees, or my projection, and my design line is going to be mobile. Okay, so I want to take about a ½ inch right down the center. And I want to comb this up at 90 degrees. Now, what you want to make sure of is where this hair is coming out of the head, that you're right at 90 degrees. If you don't know where that is, put your comb flat like this, and the way it sticks up is exactly 90 degrees. So look at the roundness of the head. This amount of hair that I have, let me turn this sideways so that you can see this. This amount of hair right here is going to be too much for me to cut at one time. Because when I place my comb here, this is 90 degrees, but that's my apex. That's the highest portion. When I get to the front and I place my comb here, can you see how it's kind of like at an angle? It's not straight up like this. It's out like that. That's 90 degrees. Now, a lot of times people want it a little bit longer in the front. They don't want it quite a true 90-degree haircut or a true uniformly layered haircut. So by pulling this up and making it the exact same length that's in the apex, this is going to become a little bit longer, right? Because we're having to stretch it back to that area. So double check, because sometimes people like their front just a little bit longer. But if I'm doing a true 90, about right here, this is where the head starts to curve forward. Here's where I have my apex, and in the back here, this is where it starts to curve back. So back here, this is 90 degrees here. Notice it's not all straight up. It is at a little bit of an angle. So as I come in, I'm going to divide this hair right about where it started to not be 90. I place my comb here and lift this up. Let's just make this whole head about 6 inches. This is the length of hair that you want when you go to state board. You want your doll that you take with you to be a uniformly layered haircut at about 6 inches all the way around. It's going to make it easiest for you to do the things that you're supposed to be doing. So I measured that out at 6 inches. Here's my 90-degree cut. Now I'm going to drop this down and use a slight, small piece of this, coming back up to here, making sure that this is at 90. It's really easy to go forward or back with it, but we want to make sure that we stay right at 90 degrees with this portion. Now I'm going to come to the back, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to give myself that same 1/2 inch all the way down the center back, and I'm going to make myself a guide right here. I am going to clip the rest of this hair up out of my way, but I am going to have a guide right down the center back. So now that I'm here, I have to figure out from my apex here, where does my head start to curve? Well, if I comb this up with what's now going to be a guide for myself, and then look at this, I can't take the hair from down here. That's way too much. I'm going to have to come to about right here where it curves. Drop this and just cut this piece for right now. Using a piece of my previously cut hair for a length guide, making sure this is coming out at 90 degrees. Take another piece, look at where the head starts to curve back here now. Now we have our nape area. This starts to curve in, right? That's 90 degrees right there. Not straight out, but right here. Right here is my apex. That's 90 degrees there. So I'm going to come in right about where my occipital bone would be and pull this out at 90, following that piece, and cut this. And now I'm going to drop that and just keep a little piece of this for a guide. And as I come down here, where's my 90 degrees at? About right there. So now I can use this to cut as my guide. Now, till you get used to the curves of the hair, you may have to measure each little piece like I just did. But now I have a guide down the center. All of this is cut at 90 degrees. If you feel like you're going to have a hard time figuring out on the sides, go ahead and take yourself about a. So if I'm going to go ahead and use this as a guide here, I have my length here. I'm going to come up here. Now on the sides, if I take this comb and I take this hair, see where these two pieces meet? Let me turn this way so you can see better. If I'm coming here and I'm placing my other comb here, where these two meet, this is where that curve is at, right? This is the parietal ridge. Here's where these two meet. So right here, this is 90 degrees. That's 90 there. And when I come down here, this is 90. So I have to remember how this head curves. So now when I'm going to pick this up to cut it, even though I have my little piece, where's my 90 degrees? That right there is too much hair to be held in this portion. So as I pick this up, right, I got 90 degrees about right there. Yeah, that's supposed to comb what you're going to cut. Right, I'm going to drop that down, pull this out, get my next piece. And then drop this top portion, pull this out. I got too long. How did I get too long there? Let's see. Up there. And see, one good thing about these combs that have rulers, you can be like, okay, I got too long. How did that happen? And then you can go back and fix it. So now I have a guide down the center and I have a guide on this side. So that's exactly what I want to do. So now as I come to the front, I'm going to look at my hairline. How is this curving in? So this will be my first one because there's my recession line. Here's my piece of hair. So I'll move all this out of the way because I don't need it. Stand behind it. Get your guide. Make sure you're coming out at 90 degrees. Cut. drop it, and come in. Take another small piece. Just cut. Your partings are going to come into play. This is where it's going to be really important for you to be picking up exactly the right amount of hair. You see, there's, well, let me get bigger here. There's my guide for my previously cut hair. Where's my 90 at? Right here. Make sure that you're not cutting anything other than the hair that you're holding. Come down with my next vertical parting. Notice I'm not even down the sides yet. Still working on this very front section. You don't want to get more than about a ½ inch, because then you're not going to get a true 90. Comb the piece that I previously cut out at 90. There's my guide. There's my 90 degrees. Cut that. I'm just going to grab this just to make sure I'm checking it, to make sure I'm all in the right spot. I thought it was getting a little bit longer. That's fine. Okay. Move that out of the way. Now I can start to come down into the side. Pick up a little piece of your previously cut hair. Flip this out. There's your guide. Drop it. Pick up your next little piece with some previously cut hair. $90. Make sure you're not pulling it too far forward or too far back. And just continue going around the head, doing the same thing. Now I'm going to come back to this next piece. This is where my other guide's at. So if I did this right, I should have the middle section, my guide in the front, my guide in my back, and it should match up. So let's find out. Make sure you don't get too much hair that you're holding. Okay, and I matched, yay. So now I can use this same little piece in the front here, and I have my guide this back section. So now when I'm working on this side, I'm just gonna drop this down. I have to think about this. This is where my head gets the widest. So remember that center of your piece or that center of your pie? Each one of these is gonna be sectioned like that. So here's my top. This would be like section 1, section 2, section 3, and then I have section 4 over here. So I gotta remember to take everything from this piece of pie right here. So comb this out of the way because I don't need it. I'm gonna grab a small piece of what I just cut. That's too much hair to hold for 90. So this is where you really have to control this hair. You have to make this hair do what you want it to do. Because if you don't, you're going to end up in a very bad situation. That's too much there. Make sure when I'm combing it straight out of the scalp that I'm coming straight out of the scalp at 90 and I'm not taking it into any other forward or back position. I'm staying right here. I'm gonna just kind of double check this because I think I'm getting longer. Yep, which is super easy to do, by the way. Or shorter. There we go. All right, so it's out of the way there. Off that center piece of pie. Piece of my previously cut hair. Drop this one, pick this one up. All right, we're gonna drop off a few friends. We're gonna pick up a few new friends. Drop it, pick it back up. Okay, bring this down, making sure I'm staying at 90. Making sure I'm cutting the right amount of hair off because I have my comb as my guide. And if it dries, you just get to pick it back up and squirt it back down. Okay, so using the same typical parting, I'm gonna come down with this. Drop it, pick it back up. If you lift it up, it's going to be longer. If you drop it down, it's going to be shorter. So think about that while you're doing this. Making sure you keep it at the same amount all the way around. Sort of weird noise. I'm like, what the heck is that? Okay, so now I'm back to this piece right here in the center. So again, I'm going to go back down the center. If I did this correctly, I should all be matching up. Drop that down, too much hair. See, I almost lost my guide, so I had to like pick up some of the hair that I just cut to figure out where I was at. There it is. Notice how I'm combing all this other hair out of my way. I don't need it. I don't need to keep holding it. I don't need to keep trying to cut it because I already have. Like, that's too much hair. I shouldn't be having more than about ½ inch in my hand to get this cut. And when I'm doing like this, I'm just kind of checking to make sure I don't have any longer pieces. See, that would be a longer piece. Just need to even that up. Okay. Move around, right? We're traveling, we're mobile. Just double checking this. Right here, right there. Okay. Now, when you get to this section, this right here is the section that if you're right-handed, you're going to have the worst time. If you're left-handed, it's this one right here. You have to really think when you start to get to this section, if you're right-handed, and just remember when I say if you're right-handed, if you're left-handed, it's the opposite of the right side. Okay, so when I get right here, what's going to happen is I'm probably going to do okay till I get about right here, and then I'm going to have a tendency to push it to the back. Instead of making sure that I'm moving myself around, I'm pulling this straight out. Now, sometimes I don't really like to do it this way because I feel like by the time I get right here, I'm in this like contorted position. So there's a couple things that you could do to help alleviate that pain that's going to happen if you do that too much, because it's not a natural position. After you take this section down here that you're going to cut, you can usually do a couple more like this without having to feel some pain. It's not that much that it feels pain. It's just that it's very awkward. It's a very awkward position, and it's hard for you to get the right angle that you need at 90 degrees. It's also not very ergonomically correct. So if you do that a lot, what's going to happen is you may end up with some muscle strain or some back pain for sure, because yeah, I've had back pain from doing this until I went to a class and they talked about being ergonomically correct, and I was like, oh, duh, change your position a little bit. Makes all the difference in the world. So one way that you can do it is when you're down here on the bottom, instead of turning yourself upside down like this to cut it, once you grab this, pull it out this way. There's your guide, there's your 90 degrees, and just cut down this way. That's one way to avoid some of the strain on your body. Another way you can do it is a way that I feel is easiest for me. Again, you're gonna have to find your own technique. But I just come back over here and start on this side. Same thing I did on this side, I'm gonna do on this side. So I'm gonna come over here and get myself a guide right here on the side, just like I did on the other side. I'm gonna come up here, and I'm gonna use this as my previously cut section. So I'm gonna use this as my length guide, because I've already cut it. When I'm here, again, I'm looking at the same curves of the head, the same areas on the head. This is my left side, so it's a little more awkward, right? Because we all have one side that's easier than the other. Okay. So now, once again, I'm just going to continue with that same pivotal parting in the back here. It's not like this piece here. So got my pivotal partings. And then I'm going to move to the front. I think I missed this. So I'll double check. Does it feel the same? Pretty much. Actually feels a little longer over here, which makes sense because it's my left side. And then I can move to the front. Now, one of the things that I think I'm still longer right here. So I come back here and repeat. You can work from the back to the front, you can work from the front to the back, just whatever makes you feel most comfortable. This is why it's really important to learn the anatomy of the head. You have 8 bones in your skull. You don't touch all of them. You're really, we have more than, wait, is it 8? Yeah, 8 and 14, 22, yeah. So you have 8 bones in your skull. You have to learn your temporal bones. You have to learn your parietal bones. You have to learn your occipital bone and your frontal bone. Just gotta remember 4 bones. Learn the shape of them on the head, because it's gonna make all the difference in the world on how your cuts come out once you learn where the bone grown. Oh. When you get someone that's an adult, sorry, I had to sneeze, and you can't figure out, you know, why one side's laying like this, look at that bone structure. It's gonna make a difference. Once you learn how those bones curve on the head, you're gonna learn how to do 90 degrees or 45 degrees or whatever the degrees are that you're doing a lot better. Okay, so now I have to check this haircut, cross-checking, right, for accuracy. So, because I did this on a vertical, I'm going to check it on a horizontal. It's always opposite. So as I come through the top, think about that width of that perm rod or that roller, right? I'm going to section that off. And I'm going to divide my head into thirds, 1, 2, 3. Even though I'm holding all of this hair, I'm going to go from the back to the front. I'm going to look at the front and make sure that that evens up. Okay, I'm going to cut about that much off. Now I'm going to go to the middle. And now I'm going to come to the back. I just went to the crown area. Okay, so now that I know that that's correct, when I come to the back, again, it's from the back. And what I'm going to do back here is I need to make sure that this all evens up. So I'm going to start in the center. And from about the occipital down, I know that this is 90 degrees. So I'm going to comb all this out at 90 degrees. And I'm going to look at this bottom and make sure that that evens up. Then I'm going to come up to where the occipital bone is, and I'm going to comb this straight out at 90 and make sure that that evens up. Okay. I'm going to move to my right side and do the same thing. And now I'm moving to my left. Now I'm always going to cut more off my left just because I know that that's how I cut. There's always going to be something more on this side than there is on the other. But one thing with this haircut, because it's 90 degrees all over the head, if I grabbed it right here and pulled this out at 90, should even up, right? Same thing over here. If I grabbed this at 90, pulled it out, should even up. Maybe there's a little bit to cut right there. But see, that's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're doing it vertically or horizontally. If I grabbed it at 90 degrees and I pulled it out, it should even up. So now I'm going to move to the sides. I'm basically going to do the same thing. I'm going to use a little bit of this hair back here as my guide. Make sure that I have 90 degrees. Pull this straight out. Does this line up at 90? No, because there's a big piece that I missed in the front. So we fix it. This is why we check it, right? In case we miss something. We check it in case we miss it so that we make sure that our client doesn't go around town saying, look what that girl did to me, or look what that guy did to me. No, We check it so that that doesn't happen. And then do the same thing on the other side. I have a feeling my left side's longer anyway, but we'll find out. The door just keeps opening today for no reason. Okay, so now we need to make sure that our perimeter is even. So again, I'm going to come in and separate the sides from the back, right behind the ear. And I'm going to comb this straight down. So at this point in time, I would have my client tilt their head forward. Just a little bit. As I look down here, I would figure out just where I would want this. What length do I want? Well, because it's my choice, I'm going to take about 2 inches off. Also because when I get to the next haircut, it's going to make it easier. Right. Following this around, I'm going to follow it all the way around. Because it's rounded, so I need to follow it around because I need to make sure it kind of rounds into the sides, because the sides are going to be shorter. And we're going to find that hairline straight down. All right, so I'm going to check it and make sure it's even. I grab up here, grab some pieces about the same spot on each side, pull that back, make sure that one side's not longer than the other. Do the same thing on a different spot, and then just check a few spots just to make sure that it feels even. Feels pretty even to me. Okay. Now I'm going to come to the front. So I'm going to do the same thing here on the front. I'm just going to come down the center and make sure that that's even. Don't get the hair too far back. You know, just get the front gets cut. So since my right side's shorter, I'm just going to double check and make sure that this evens up. Now I'm doing a non-parallel finger position because I don't want it to be shorter. I want it to get, you know, longer as I go down. So this is where my finger position is becoming non-parallel. Still not going past that invisible line called the nose. And now here's where I want to check to see if it's even. And I thought this side was a little bit longer, not so much this way, but here in the front. So again, we're just going to come back and cut a little bit more off. Oh yeah, it's probably right about there. Don't cut past your second knuckle or you'll cut yourself. I found myself cutting past my second knuckle, getting awful close to my skin and going, yes, I'm going to cut myself. Okay. So now what I want to do is make sure that these sides right here match the back. So right over the top of where my parting was, I want to come straight down. And as I come straight down, does it match? Well, it's a little bit shorter here and a little bit shorter there, but there's like a point right there. Just this little piece right there is a point. So I'm going to slightly shift this forward. See my point right there? And I'm just going to take that off. Sometimes that little tiny piece right there is going to make all the difference in a haircut. Sometimes less is way more. Sometimes just a little tiny piece of hair that you cut makes all the difference in the world. So I'm going to come over here, do the same thing. So now when I get ready to check this, which you can't do this to a person, but if I'm checking it in natural fall, kind of rounds, see how it's just sort of rounding all the way around, which is exactly what we want. And I have a uniformly layered haircut. And the layers are about all the same length, about 6 inches, all the way around the whole head. So if we were to style this, we'd get lots of volume and fullness out of it. But this is uniformly layered. Is there any questions on that one? No? Okay. So it is 2:55. So yeah, 2:55. So let's be back here at 3:05.
Miss Connie, you're muted.
Okay, so I hit graduated haircuts. This is the last one that we have to do. And look at all the different haircuts that came up. Now, not all of these are graduated haircuts. The first, 1, 2, 3, 4 are probably falling more along the lines of increased layered. As we pop over to like the 5th one, like this one and that one, 5th and 6th one, those are graduated. And the reason that they become graduated is, come on, work, there we go, is because of this right here. This comes down, this comes up, forms a point right there, that's your weight. They call this a triangular shape because right here, that forms your triangle. Okay, the same thing with this. This one has a really elongated line of demarcation, or not demarcation, line of inclination. And then from the crown, it comes down and forms that point. And then this would be like our triangular look there. Again, this one is very close and high. This one's high. So it comes down here, forms our point for our triangle. That's a very high graduation. And that's what this makes this one so versatile, is because it can be high or it can be low. This one here is probably about a medium. Occipital bone's about medium. Low is 0 to 30, medium's about 45, and then high is anything above 45. So as we get into things like layered, sometimes like stacked bobs, you know, those can be done a little bit different. But graduation is kind of a versatile haircut because you can put it over increased layers. You can put it over long layers. You can just graduate the back and leave the top portion of the sides a solid form. So there's lots of different variations on this one that make it a very versatile haircut. Like you can go from dramatic to just semi-dramatic. So what I'm going to show you on this haircut that I just did is we're going to keep it low, and I'm going to show you the difference of low, and then I'll bring it up to medium, and then I'll take it up a little bit higher. So if I come over here with our lovely girl, I don't know what we should name her, but we're going to be using her right now. And I'm going to do my graduation. The thing with this is that I want, this is not kind of staying where I want it to go. Get up there. Okay. Still, again, I want to separate my sides from my back. So I'm going to part it down the center. Not quite behind the ear, but we'll just use the apex as our guide here. I'm going to section this out of the way. Well, that's not a very big section. Well, I see what I did. Didn't make it very straight. It's very diagonal looking. Okay, so this hair is going to get just removed out of my way. Some of you, when you put the hair up, you twist it up, and it's so pretty, but sometimes that's not always necessary. Over here, same thing. It's going to make the difference in this is the back and how I go about it. Okay, my head position is going to be upright. My finger tool position are going to be parallel. My projection or elevation is going to be about 30 degrees, but my partings in this portion are going to be horizontal. So as I come down here, actually I'm going to tilt it forward just a little bit, not a lot. And I drop this down. I want to establish a length. What length do I want to cut this? Well, I am going to cut it about the bottom of her neck here. I don't want to put any tension on this. Can you see? It'll make more sense when I go sideways. I do want to get it wet though. Don't want to squirt my keyboard though. Okay. And I'm going to just cut this straight across, just about. Notice how I have a 1-finger projection? That's going to start to give me that elevation or that projection that I want. So I'm going to do a 1-finger projection on the back of the neck here, and I'm just going to cut this. Making sure, following myself around so I don't end up with one side longer than the other. And then we want to check for symmetry, right? We always want to check for symmetry before we move on. Okay, so now I'm going to drop down my neck section. Remember, I'm keeping this low, so I got to keep this at about 30 degrees. It's just going to be in the very bottom of the hair. Okay, so what's 30 degrees, right? Because, I mean, do we even know what that is? So if straight down here is 0, and straight out here is 90, 45 is about halfway, 30 is a little bit lower than that. The whole thing on this is that you've got to try to keep it consistent as you're working around the head, and sometimes that gets challenging. So here's the easiest way that I found. Each finger is about 10 degrees. Okay, so if I'm on the back of the head here, that should be about 30 degrees when I'm holding the head or the hair. So I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to comb my hair. See how, even though I'm holding this out about right here at 30 degrees, see how I have this like dip right here? It's the top hair that we want to be nice and smooth and straight. So I'm going to comb this out at about 30 degrees. I'm going to bring this down. I can see the hair underneath. That was my length guide. And I want to cut that at just about 30 degrees. I'm going to move around the head. I'm going to take a piece of my previously cut hair as a guide, and I'm going to do the same thing. Here's my about 30 degrees. Making sure that the hair on the top here that I'm combing is coming out of this. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And as I comb it down, it's not going to look straight across. It's not going to look layered, but you are going to see a little bit of a jaggediness to it. And I'll do a couple more and I'll show you. Because what I always hear from students when they're doing this is, it looks weird. Okay. I always hear it looks weird, but nobody can tell me what they see to make it look weird, because they're seeing the underneath is it. I'm going to go back up to the occipital bone just to sort of give you an idea of what this is going to look like and show you what we're looking for to know that we've done this correctly. Again, now starting in the center of this hair at the top. Even though I've got this hair on my hand on the bottom, when I comb this out, I want to make sure that this hair at the top is coming out at my 30 degrees, not the hair underneath, the hair at the top.
Okay, so you can see how this down here at the bottom starts to have a little bit of layers where this falls down over the top. These ends kind of stack up on top of each other, and this is why sometimes people call it stacked. If you really want to see the triangular look to it, we're going to kind of comb this under here. And from the side, let's see, where's the side? No, there we go. From the side, right down here, just this last couple inches, you should start to see this little line of inclination right here, just that much, from the bottom of the head to right where the top of the comb is. This is the amount right here that's going under to give us that little bit of a line of inclination right there. Can you see it? Yeah, okay. So that's what you want to get for a low graduation. If I'm going to be doing medium, I'm doing the same thing, but it's at 45. So still using the length that I have here. If I bring this up to 45, this is 90, 45 sort of in the middle. So I'm just going to pull this up at about 45, using the hair underneath as the length guide and taking this off. If I have a client that's getting their hair cut like this, I prefer to use clippers to do this because I just think it looks a little bit neater and cleaner if they want something dramatic. But that wants to wear his hair longer, this type of haircut is really good because at the neckline, it reduces that bulk. So it's not a nice big bulky haircut at the nape. Okay, so again, you should be able to see this line of inclination falling in, but now it's a little bit higher. Now it's probably what, about 2.5 inches? Start to see a little bit more drama on effect here because it's just a little bit more. And if I was going to raise this up even higher, I would come in and just, I mean, 90 becomes uniform, right? So I want to keep it right below 90, but I can give this even some more drama if I wanted to bring this up a little bit more. But that's just keeping it at the bottom. Now I can continue to drop this hair because I had uniformly layered on top of it. So I could continue to drop this down, just staying right here at the 45 at the occipital bone, and it's going to change this whole haircut. Right, so this is where the two forms are meeting. So this is where I'm going to have my maximum weight line, is where these two different forms meet. Try not to get it too wet so that you can really see the difference here. Good, making sure I'm bringing this out at 45 degrees, right? I'm not just holding it down in the same spot because then I'm gonna have like a line, like a solid form. So I have to make sure that each layer that I drop down, I'm pulling out at 45 degrees from the scalp. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close where this is, so that I don't have just a straight across line. I'm kind of in an awkward position though, because I'm trying to stand where you can see. And then again, once I bring this down from the top here, out at 45 from here on the top, at the underneath. And see now from the area, oh, what did I do? Okay. So now from the area that I'm at, you can really see my line of inclination that's coming up like this. Now to check this, to make sure that you've done this correctly, what you want to do is when you grab it and you pull it out, what you want to see is that it's shorter to longer. You want to see that line of inclination there. And that's how you would check this haircut. I might even go back through and just sort of pull this out along the weight line here and just make sure that it all evens up according to what I was looking for. But now I got to bring the sides into it, right? Because if I did this haircut and I dropped it down, my sides would not this sides, and here's my haircut. So I could actually make this A-line down, and I think I will, just so I can keep a little bit of length there on the sides and show you how I would go about doing this on the sides. So I would start with the head in an upright position. As I'm coming from here, this is my bulkiest link, so I need to make it come down to here. So I'm going to start in the apex, and I'm going to do a diagonal line here, and I'm going to comb this hair back. As I comb it back, there's my guide. I'm going to use that as my length and remove it. Now it's still going to be more of a uniformly layered, so I'm going to come up about halfway through. No, I'm not. I'm just going to grab the side here, and I'm going to pull this out at my 45 degrees, but I'm going to pull it back at 45. See that area right there? That's exactly what needs to come off, so those two areas will blend. That's a transition area, and in order to make sure that you're doing this correctly, you need to make sure that your transitional blends are smooth, which sometimes it's not as easy as you would think it would be. Okay, so I do the same thing on this other side. Now here's the trick. You got to get the same diagonal. That's always the fun part. And then we'll check it from the front. Okay, so now this girl, since she likes to wear her hair to the side, I want to make sure that her fringe area is going to transition into this side correctly. But I don't want to cut that point because I do want that longer, so it'll come down here and come back here, and it looks like it's going to work just fine. And then on this side, I have my line coming down. From the back, there's my line of inclination. I could make this shorter, I could make it longer, but I'm gonna save some hair on this girl because I need to use it for other purposes. But see, now when I'm looking at it from normal projection, you can see as where it's shorter and you can see the line of inclination. This is the weight area and how it comes back into that, and that's your triangular piece. Any questions?
That looks good, Miss Connie.
Yeah. Yes? Did anyone have a question? No, I thought someone did. Okay, let me get you a video here to show you another type of increased layered and another type of graduate. Okay, sorry about that. I lost you for a minute. I had to sign out and sign back in. So let me go ahead and try this again.
Okay. Here's some things now on a graduated, some more on a graduated form.
Graduated sculptures have grown in popularity, especially since the 1960s, and names have been given to these designs such as wedge or firefly. Despite the many different technical approaches that can be used to create graduated sculptures, they all have a striking geometric character that features a triangular shape, the trademark of this form. Here, you'll learn more about the characteristics of the graduated form, as well as techniques to create predictable graduated sculpture results. Graduated forms tend to be triangular in shape. The appearance of width is accentuated when the graduated form is sculpted on wavy or curly hair. Note how the shape is influenced by the degree of graduation: low, medium, and high graduation. The weight within a graduated form occurs above the perimeter form line. A weight line develops at the location where the longest lengths fall to rest and is usually defined and easy to see. A weight area occurs at the widest angular corner of the shape. Sculpting on textured hair will expand the shape in the weight area. In the graduated form, shorter exterior lengths progress toward longer interior lengths. In natural fall, the ends of the hair fall close to one another and stack up along an angle. Note how this progression varies in low, medium, and high graduated forms. The combination of unactivated texture at the interior and activated texture in the exterior of a graduated form is created by the visible stacking the hair ends. This visual texture contrast is reduced when sculpted on wavy or curly hair. The line that visually separates the two textures is called the ridge line. We will now look at the sculpting procedures used to sculpt graduated forms. Graduated forms are usually sectioned between design line or projection changes. You may also section to subdivide large areas for control while sculpting. The head position used to sculpt graduated forms is generally upright. The position may vary when sculpting certain areas, such as the nape. If the head position is altered, be especially careful of the distribution and projection used. Common partings used are horizontal, diagonal forward, and diagonal back. Generally, the partings will be parallel to the intended form line. The exception is sculpting from vertical partings, which can be used with any form line. In this case, the partings are not necessarily parallel to the form line. However, your finger position must remain diagonal. Natural, perpendicular, and shifted distribution be used to create varying degrees of graduated texture. Natural distribution from horizontal and diagonal partings must be combined with projection to create graduated texture. Perpendicular distribution from diagonal partings will result in a small amount of graduation. The steeper the angle of the parting, the greater the amount of graduation. Projection increases the amount of graduation. Shifted distribution is used in graduated forms to create length increases for blending or establishing the form. Projection for graduated forms involves lifting the hair out of natural fall prior to sculpting. It is the most commonly used method to achieve graduation. Lower projection angles create low graduation, and higher projection angles produce high graduation. Often, a medium angle, approximately 45 degrees, is used as a standard. Since graduation is sculpted from the perimeter upward, the first section that is projected will determine the progression of lengths. This establishes the line of inclination. This line describes the angular silhouette that the graduated form reveals as it is being sculpted. At the beginning of the sculpture, the line of inclination is an imaginary line that guides you in the development of the form. All subsequent sections travel to this line, and exposed hair ends stack up along the angle of this line. The celestial axis can be used to maintain consistent projection when directing the hair to the desired line of inclination. A low projection angle results in a low line of inclination. More weight is maintained in the form with a small amount of activation. A medium line of inclination is created by sculpting with a medium projection angle. The amount of activation increases and expansion occurs with a defined weight area. A high line of inclination is created with a high projection angle. The amount of activation and expansion is greater with a higher degree of projection. Low, medium, and high projection angles can all be combined within a single hair sculpture if varying degrees of graduation are desired. As the projection angle is lowered, the line of inclination drops and the amount of weight increases. When the projection angle is raised, more activation and expansion in the interior of the form are created. In most instances, your finger shear position will be parallel to your partings while sculpting graduation. The sculpting position generally positions your hands palm to palm. Graduation can also be created by using a vertical parting pattern and positioning your fingers along the intended line of inclination. Depending on the length of the hair and the area of the head, you may position your hand palm up or palm down. The design line may be stationary, mobile, or a combination of the two, depending on the amount of weight desired in a given area. When projecting each section consistently along the line of inclination, a mobile design line is used. As you progress, pick up a small amount of the previously sculpted hair as a guide. It is also possible to project all lengths to the first projected section when a weightier low graduation is desired. This involves the use of a stationary design line. In many instances, a combination of mobile and stationary design lines may be used. The stationary design line may be used where additional weight is desired. Vertical partings are often used to cross-check graduated forms. The hair is sectioned vertically and directed out from the head while the fingers are aligned with the line of inclination. It is often desirable to soften the weight area of a graduated form. Generally, this is done by taking vertical partings and sculpting the weight corner to remove it or texturize within it. To remove the weight corner, the hair is projected out and sculpted vertically or notched. Taper shears or a razor may also be used to remove the desired amount of weight. Graduation can also be achieved by placing tension or pressure on wet hair. Pressure graduation is especially effective on wavy or curly textures. The amount of activation and expansion is greatly influenced by the degree of curl texture in the hair. The hair may be controlled between the fingers, or it may be held flat to the head with the back of the hand or the spine of the comb.
So that was a few more things on the graduated haircuts. There's so many different things, like I said, that you can do with these. But the whole idea of this is just to get you to understand like the basics of haircutting, because there's so many more things you can do with it, but you're not going to get any of the advanced stuff if you can't get the basics. So, you know, I'm just trying to hopefully clarify some of those things up so that you'll be able to get better. So let's see, we got a few more minutes left. Let's go ahead and do the one on uniformly layered. Let me get out of this one and pull that one up. actually, before I do that, because I was saying that you could do the same type of a haircut. And remember, I told you that there's many different types of techniques that all kind of achieve the same end results. So this is actually a graduated haircut on a diagonal kind of a line. It's a diagonal back line actually. So it gets a little bit shorter in the front, but this would be for someone who wants this kind of haircut. Let me get that one up for you.
Graduated forms are popular with men because of their versatility. This sculpture can be worn off the face when sculpted with a longer fringe. In this exercise, graduated lengths are sculpted along a horizontal line in the back and blend into diagonal back graduated lengths at the sides. The graduated fringe is sculpted horizontally.
The mannequin compared to the guy looks totally different.
The structure graphics show diagonal back graduated lengths on the sides that blend to the horizontal graduation in the back and in the fringe. Section the hair from the back of each ear and from the center front hairline to the nape. The art indicates that horizontal partings are used for the back and diagonal back partings are used for the sides. Horizontal partings are used in the fringe. With the head upright, begin at the back nape and release a horizontal parting. Use natural distribution and one finger projection. Position fingers horizontally and sculpt parallel to establish a mobile design line. Sculpt from the center to one side. Then to the other side. On the next horizontal part, use perpendicular distribution with a medium projection angle. Use a mobile design line and sculpt parallel to the horizontal parting. Continue to use perpendicular distribution and medium projection until you reach the crest area. Once you reach the crest area, lower the projection angle to create weight. Continue working upward, distributing each subsequent horizontal parting to the stationary design line to complete the section. Section the fringe from in front of the apex to the end of the eyebrow on each side. Natural distribution and horizontal partings will be used to sculpt the fringe. In the fringe area, release the parting parallel to the hairline. Use natural distribution, one finger projection, and sculpt horizontally using the tip of the nose as a length guide. Sculpt from the center to one side, then to the other side. Check for symmetry before proceeding. Direct subsequent horizontal partings to the stationary design line and sculpt horizontally. Use the comb to determine the angle of the diagonal back line that will be used to connect the fringe in the back. Release a small parting parallel to the hairline. Position your fingers along the diagonal back line and sculpt a natural fall to create the diagonal back mobile design line. Avoid using tension over the ear, blend lengths to the back. Move to the opposite side and use the same techniques to establish the diagonal back line. Return to the right side, take a diagonal back parting, and sculpt using perpendicular distribution, medium projection, and a mobile design line. At the crest, lower the projection angle and distribute the remaining partings to the stationary design line. Work to the top of the section using the same techniques. Move to the opposite side and release the diagonal back parting. Use perpendicular distribution, medium projection, and a mobile design line to sculpt. Continue using the same techniques until you reach the crest. Work to the top, distributing subsequent diagonal back partings to the stationary design line at the crest. This complete exercise shows medium graduation along a horizontal line in the back, blending into diagonal back graduation on the sides.
Okay, so that looks much better on a live person than it does on that mannequin head. When I first saw the mannequin head, I was like, whoa. Okay, so here's your assignment. There's 4 basic haircuts, right? Solid form, graduated, increased, layered, and uniform. You have 7 sculpting procedures, right? Head position, partings, I can never remember them. I swear I should know them by now, right? You have 7 sculpting procedures. So with each haircut, each basic haircut, using your 7 sculpting procedures, what would they be? So for an example, solid form, right? Head position would be upright. Partings would be in 4s. Subpartings or sectioning would be in 4s. Partings would be horizontal. It would be done in a natural fall. You would have a parallel finger and tool position, and you would sculpt it at 0 degrees with a stationary design line. I think that was 7. So use that for each one of the basic forms. Just write it out, take a picture of it, shoot it in, text it to us, and that's your assignment for today. And then I think Miss Janie finished with sculpting too. So those of you that are going to be here tomorrow, you're going to be getting a little sculpture test to go along with the theory for these days so we can have grades for you. And those of you that aren't going to be here tomorrow, be prepared because you'll get one when you finally get here. So that's assignment. Any questions on assignment there? Hi, Judith.
Could you repeat what it was, please?
Okay, so you have each of the 4 basic sculptures and you have 7 sculpting procedures. So using each one of the 4 sculptures, what would your procedure be? So like for a solid form, you would have an upright head position, you would be sectioned into 4s, you would have horizontal partings, you'd have parallel finger and tool position, stationary design line, 0 degrees, and all that goes through there. Okay, got it. That makes sense now. Okay, so do that for each one of the 4 basic forms, and then just take a picture of it and text it into us. And that's your assignment for today. So is there any other questions? No? Okay, so you guys have a great evening. Be safe out there, and we'll see you later.
Bye, Miss Connie.
Bye.
Bye, Miss Connie. You have a good one now.
Bye, you too. Is that your sister, Judith? Hi, Judith's sister.
That's it's me.
Oh, it's Leslie? What the heck?
I left
Is that
my
what
house
Why do you have your thing over here with your makeup mirror?
because I was at my house with them. I was like, we gotta go to Judith's house, so I just left it on in case I went back home, and then I'm here. Yeah, but hey, I'm here.
Hey,
So
you are. So to go do your assignment then.
maybe.
Crazy.
Yeah, bye.
Good thing I didn't call her for something, huh?